Hello, fantasy faithfuls, and welcome to episode 1 of the CSD and Faber Experience. We had such a great turnout during the off season with the streams we did together that we decided to make this a seasonal thing as well. We will try to get this show on every Wednesday here on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, but we will see if we can get it out as an audio podcast as well later on during the season. I have some plugs as well, so don't forget to check out the waiver wire article now on csdfantasy.com and the score projections coming out tomorrow on the website. That will be around 6 p.m. Don't miss all the video content here that will arrive Friday to Sunday with a live stream at 12 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube. If you want help, that's my bad. If you want to help out the channel, be sure to check out our Patreon page below for exclusive content and score projections for your personal fantasy team. But Nick, since we are on the CSD Fantasy YouTube channel, tell us who you are before we get into today's show.
Hey, Nick Faber, thanks for having me on. I'm excited for us to start doing this show. Like you said, every Wednesday we're going to be here live, just talking fantasy football, which is my favorite thing to do. But like I said, my name is Nick Faber. Find me on Twitter at Nick Faber NFL. I host a podcast at RZR Fantasy NFL. I co-host another podcast. We do a daily podcast called The Daily Blitz. And, of course, I'm doing this live show with my main man here, and we'll be doing it every Wednesday. But thanks again, man.
No, happy to have you on board. It's my pleasure. Every podcast or every show we did this offseason was fantastic. I had such a great time.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I second that 1,000%. That's why we agreed to, get this going, because it just seemed like it brought in enough revenue and enough, it generated enough people interested in what we were talking about that we were like, why give them a show every other month? Let's try to do it every week and try to give the fans what they want.
Definitely. And that's the shows we did. We tried to keep them a little structured, but it kind of went off the deep end, down the rabbit hole a few times, and that's sort of why we named it the experience.
Yeah, because you're listening, you're going to find out real quick. We definitely don't stay structured. There's just too much to chat about.
Yeah, and topics. We start off with a topic and then end up somewhere else.
We'll start with the Cowboys and we'll end with hunting alligators in Florida. Who knows where we're going to go? It's an experience. We're all here for the same ride. It's going to be a roller coaster.
And next week we will have Nick's face show up on screen as well. We had some technical difficulties before the stream, so it was just a big black square instead of his face. So that's why he's just a picture this week.
That's the nice way to say it. Really, we got on, and he looks and he says, "Nick, that mustache is hideous. We can't put you on this week. We'll talk about it next week." That's really what happened. Don't let him fool you. I'm just joking.
So let's start with the first thing first. So the news rundown. What do you think about Antonio Brown and all the crap that's been going on? Let's try to stay away from the allegations that are out right now and talk a little bit about the Patriots situation and not the trade, but what happened there. What's your first take on that?
So that's for fantasy, like for NFL purposes, it's like just humiliating to the entire other 31 teams that are out there that the Patriots go out there and wallylop the Steelers 33-3 in prime time and then decide, right before, but decide that they're going to add Antonio Brown to this roster that where wide receiver core for a minute in the offseason looked like their maybe weakest department, but is now flourished to their top with Jacoby Myers emerging with they traded Demaryius Thomas, but they had Demaryius Thomas, they have AB, yeah. They have Josh Gordon, who looks just healthy as could be. Hopefully he can stay on the field. Julian Edelman, let's not forget about him. Let's not forget about Philip Dorsett, Mr. 2 touchdowns last week, this week 1. It's just a wide receiving core that's vicious, and to add Antonio Brown is just criminal.
Yeah, I feel like Josh Gordon even increased in value with AB coming, because the wide receiver 2 for AB has tended to get a lot of space just by the sheer amount of protection, you have to slide over to protect AB. So to me, Josh Gordon even increased in value with this. But I feel like it kind of impacts the integrity of the game a little bit when you can force yourself off the team you maybe didn't want to go to end up at the team where, like the Steelers said, we don't want you being at the Patriots, even though they offered a first round pick. We don't want you to go there. He goes to another team, forces himself out the team, and where does he end up? I feel like it sort of impacts the integrity of the game and what, and it's really a middle finger to the Steelers as an organization, even though they've been hyped a lot with how they've handled Brown over the last years, with Mike Tomlin just being would people want him to get Coach of the Year retroactively for the last 6 years?
Yeah, I did see that. That's hilarious. I mean, you're right though. Like, is that how it's gonna start to happen to people? Like, I don't know if players want to like deface their name and their brand as much as AB did to get off of a team. But if that's the case, and if that's where we're heading to, I don't like that one bit, and you're right. It does kind of just mess with the integrity of the game. That's not what I like to see. Though this was the first instance, I just don't see this continuously happening. I don't see it becoming a trend. But I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. The next thing, just touch briefly because we don't have that much information. Does the allegations from Florida impact how you view AB from a fantasy standpoint?
It definitely did. He correct me. He practiced today, right? He was out there practicing.
As far as I know, and what the media has been saying.
So I mean, before I saw him practice, I'd have said he'd never play it down with the Patriots. Too much coming in. Like the Patriots were all right with handling AB, but with the allegations, I just didn't think they were going to take. They were just going to even create that kind of media buzz in their locker room. But he was practicing today. So that shows me that all signs are leading to him maybe playing this year and like seeing a fallout of whatever happens next year. Similar how Tom Brady played the whole year where the Deflategate was going on. It wasn't until the following year that he missed the first 4 games. Not to compare Deflategate to the allegations made to Antonio Brown, but I just say that I've seen this before where
it's sort of the Zeke situation more, where it's an allegation of abuse and a player still plays, or the Kareem Hunt situation where we have these allegations where we don't have proof, but a player still plays.
I don't want to see video if there is proof.
Oh, no. But, with the Ray Rice and...
yeah.
Where
it's kind of unjust to the players and to the fans even, or to the spouses and plus ones, that you really just have to have a video for you to get in trouble. Joe Mixon had a horrible outcome, and he is playing in the NFL and obviously like gonna get paid, and it's just bad. But then Ray Rice does the same thing, and there's video of it, and he's never allowed to play in the NFL again.
Yeah, but then you have the other side of that coin with players who've been, personally attacked with allegations that haven't been proved, and then that sort of ruined their reputation as well. So
I know.
It's sort of, I don't know if you followed the whole ASAP Rocky thing with Sweden, and it's kind of to the point where people find these famous people and just, I'm gonna insert myself into a situation to where maybe I can get paid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making that comparison to this. We don't have enough facts. We just wanted to touch on it for a fantasy ball. Let me say hi to one of our viewers who commented in the chat, Dan DeMario. Welcome to the CSD and Faber Experience. Happy to have you on board.
Yes, sir.
Dan is one of our regulars on the stream. Love having him on board. Next topic for the news. It's funny because I think this is the first player you and I ever talked about. We've talked about him plenty, but this is back in 2017, and it's Hunter Henry is out. Just dropped him on my Dynasty team. Had him on IR all of last season. What are some tight ends that you're looking to pick up if you're a Hunter Henry owner?
So, like, first and foremost, in ESPN leagues, both TJ Hawkinson and Darren Waller are falling under the 40% owned mark, meaning that there's a 60% chance your league does not have TJ Hawkinson or Darren Waller. Both of these guys need to be owned, right? They absolutely need to be owned. And these are two of the higher guys that might not be available. But to answer your question is, those are the top two guys on my list. For me, it's those two. If Mark Andrews is available, you want to be targeting him as well with Hawkinson and Darren Waller. Waller put up 70 yards and 7 catches in Oakland and is the only pass catcher there outside of Tyrell Williams. Like, I'm not nervous for Hunter Renfrow, for J.J. Nelson, for Marcel Aitman. I don't even know if half those guys are even on the team anymore. But if they are, I'm not worried about them or whoever is on that team. It's the Darren Waller show. We saw how Derek Carr liked to hit his tight end last year with David Cook. TJ Hawkinson faster than more receivers I've seen play in the NFL. Hawkinson is going to find open coverage with Kenny Golladay on the side, with Marvin Jones on the side, with Danny Amendola, who showed that if he stays healthy, he can be a great addition to the Lions team. So Hawkinson also should be seeing single coverage and really just has a Gronkowski-esque to him. And then Mark Andrews, same thing as Waller. Him and Marquise Brown are maybe the only two players on that team. Willie Snead might catch a touchdown here and there, but he has nothing to write home about. Chris Moore is not really anything. Miles Boykin might have some opportunities, but none of these guys worry me. Mark Andrews will get his fair share too. So those are my top 3 guys, I would say, for sure. Not really getting too deep.
Yeah, I picked up in my Dynasty League where I actually had Hunter Henry, like I said, go down. I put in 2 waiver claims. Our league is really tight on tight ends. Haha. It's difficult to get one at this time. So the ones that I had to put in for went with Chris Herndon, even though he's suspended for 3 more games. I think he's going to be a fantastic addition to that Jets team. So if you have room to stash him, I'm stashing him in 2 leagues right now to get him back on my team and starting him in week 5 and beyond. I don't know who he plays in week 5. He plays the Phillies, not the Phillies, but the Philadelphia Eagles. Too much baseball going on in my head.
The Phillies. The Phillies play football. Unfortunately, though, it'd be fun to see Bryce Harper out there playing football.
I'm showing up Braves Cup on screen right now.
Oh, Atlanta Braves, huh?
Yeah, so they're playing the Phillies, so they're on my way. But Chris Herndon is a guy I'm targeting. And before that, I also put in a waiver claim for, this is half point PPR, I put in a waiver claim for Tyler Eifert because I think that the Red Rifle looked good.
So what scares me about Eifert is I have Eifert. I'm actually about to drop Eifert. The fact of the matter is that Andy Dalton's not going to throw the ball 51 times a year. Or a game, excuse me.
No, but I only want him for a few games, though. I don't need him to cover my team.
It's to Herndon. Right, and I get that. But CJ Uzma had just as many targets, correct me if I'm wrong, with more yards, less receptions, but more yards. I feel like that's going to be a tight end split, and I'm not as comfortable because I'm always comfortable with the Cincinnati tight end because Dalton likes to find his tight end in the red zone. So I agree, and I drafted Eifert in our league. I got a share of him because I had the same thought process. But I don't think that we're going to see a Tyler Eifert that we are used to because I think Uzma might steal a few of those red zone targets. For me, if we were trying to dig a little deeper, Herndon's a great one. I'm not afraid to get Jason Witten.
Oh, I was about to say him as well. In PPR, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not, especially with what we saw from Dak. And if he's going to play for his contract, give me him. Another guy I don't mind is Vernon Davis. If Jordan Reed's going to continue to be injured, Case Keenum's going to have to find Vernon Davis. And Vernon Davis found the fountain of youth. The guy jumped over.
Play.
He jumped over.
To be fair, it was terrible defense, though.
Terrible. But that's okay. That's neither here nor there. Another guy, Tyler Higbee, just signed an extension with the Rams, caught a touchdown last week.
There's so many mouth there, though.
But exactly, and there's Mike Gesicki on a Dolphins team that is going to have to throw the ball because they'll be behind against the Patriots.
Yeah.
For most of that game. So Gesicki just has a great opportunity because he's kind of flashed some positive plays. where he might have an opportunity. So those are a couple of later names that I'd like to throw in with you, but I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No. Jason Witten was actually the last guy I was going to mention in PPR. Otherwise, I picked up Waller and Hawkinson, but you already touched on those. I'm going with them in some leagues as well. Waller, especially in PPR. Hawkinson was available in one league. I don't think I'm going to get him. I scored extremely high in that league. But sometimes you got to take a shot at it. I want to do some more shout outs real quick. Chauncey TV, happy to have you on board on the stream.
What up?
KT, so happy to see you as well. Thank you for appreciating the content. Nick and I are extremely happy to have all of you here live. So if you have questions, just hit us up, interrupt. This is the CSD and Faber Experience, episode 1, and we can go off topic instantly. We haven't even got to our second topic yet, and it's already been 17 minutes. We're still on Hunter Henry. This is the second news item.
What I'm saying. This is the experience. This is the rabbit hole we go down. You know what I mean?
Maybe we should have named it the rabbit hole. Just switch name on every episode and call every episode episode 1.
Yeah, I like the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole, the fantasy rabbit hole. No, I don't know. I like the experience because we don't know what we're gonna do. You know, it's a brand new experience for everyone.
Completely. Let's actually skip the news a little bit. I know we have another injury for the LA Chargers with Mike Williams as well. But I've never been a huge fan of his. And even though I put up a video of him on Monday, I believe, he is not one of my favorite. And I've told people to drop him for Tyrell Williams with much more opportunity. And now he shows up hurt. So it's an even better situation for you. To make that trade. Before we get on to the next topic, we have a couple of questions. So, Dan DeMore, what do you think about the San Francisco backfield? Is Breida startable? Nick, you want to go first?
Oh my gosh, the Breida thing is scaring me right now. Why don't I have this right up in front of me? Who are they playing this week? San Francisco?
It's
right here. So they're playing Cincinnati on the road.
Yes.
We saw Chris Carson do all right against Cincinnati while they were home. I'm not sold on Matt Breida, and I would hate for this game to turn into a big run-heavy game opposed to a Garoppolo-Dalton shootout, because I can see that happening. So it's kind of scary not to start him this week. For me, though, I'm just not in love with him because Raheem Mostert comes in, and he looks good last week. He's one of the sneaky additions I'm trying to tell people to kind of go towards the waiver wire. I don't know what happened to Coleman. I'm pretty sure he's injured. But Matt Breida seemed like the guy on a San Francisco team that seemed out of the league right now. It didn't seem like they have the full connection going on. Garoppolo didn't look great. Sure, they won. They beat a Jameis Winston Tampa Bay team that just looked bad.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that the Niners are going to come into Cincinnati and beat them and have a game script where they're going to be running the ball with Matt Breida a lot. He can catch balls if they are behind. It depends on who else you have, I guess, really what it comes down to. I think he's startable, yes. Would I start him over, Josh Jacobs or something like that? No. Would I start him over Kerryon Johnson or James Conner? No. Phillip Lindsay.
Singletary. We're going to touch running backs later on. I have both of them on the list to touch.
That's a good one, too. That motherfucker had 70 yards on 4 carries.
Oh,
is that?
Oh, yeah. He's my new crush.
Woo! I also have him as a crush. But so yeah, I don't know. Startable for sure. Not the highest guy on my board.
Yes. So let's get on with our next topic. So the standout performance of the week. To me, I would like to highlight John Ross. I did not see that coming anywhere. I had no idea that was going to happen. I'm even picking him over Sammy Watkins as my standout performance. He had 12 targets for 7 receptions for 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Where did this come from? I don't know. I'm going to go so much in depth on him this week, either Friday or Saturday in a video, because I want to know more about this John Ross who showed up and this Cincy team that you and I were hype on. When was that? April, May, we talked about Cincinnati, and then we kind of drifted away from them as more and more injuries came along. But then John Ross comes in and looks like John Ross, or well, 2.0, and I'm just mind blown. We've seen Sammy Watkins take over games where he's just been amazing. It just he does it once and then he never does it again. John Ross has never done anything like this, and he blew my mind. I was so impressed with a much more crisp route running that I've seen from him before. I think his cuts look much better than they've done in the past. And 12 targets,
Led the team.
like they were throwing the ball like crazy when Mixon went out, and I am I'm excited about John Ross. I don't know. That's just my guy who I'm probably not. I might play him in DFS against San Francisco and see if I can pick him up in some leagues, but I'm very happy with my lineups as they are right now. I'm trying not to go too. I'm trying not to overreact on the waiver wire from week one, if that makes sense.
No, and that you can't do that, and that doesn't come so much in on adding players, but it comes big on dropping players. You don't want to overreact to guys like Dante Moncrief, who had a shitty game but had 10 targets, led the team. There's guys you don't want to sleep on. James Washington didn't look great, but I mean those are just a couple of Pittsburgh examples. But you don't want to overreact on those kind of guys. But for me, I love John Ross. Holy crap, do I love John Ross. The guy has the speed. He might not have the hands, and I get he's not the best pass catcher out there, and it might hurt when A.J. Green comes back. But I'm telling you, John Ross was drafted 9th overall for a damn reason, and he's been under the Marv Lewis hate train. He's been under the cloud of hatred of Lewis, but Lewis is gone, and Zach Taylor's in, and they had a perfect game that led to John Ross getting these amount of targets, these amount of yards. He led the league in amount of total target distance because of his 12 targets, 173 total yards throughout all the targets that he had. Just like he was right up there. He had a couple drops, and that's what scares me about John Ross. I am definitely going after John Ross in many of my leagues, but just temper the expectations. Again, Andy Dalton's not going to throw the ball 51 times every game. San Francisco has a better secondary than Seattle. That's for sure. So I'm interested to see what he does in week 2. But if you have him on your team, and luckily I went and I thought John Ross would be very good this year. And because we have talked about the Bengals, because everyone knows I'm so high on the Bengals this year, even without A.J. Green, even without Jonah Williams, I still like the Bengals. And unfortunately, they lost that game. But I got a lot of shares of Ross. Unfortunately, I couldn't start him against Seattle because in the back of my mind, I still think Legion of Boom when I think Seattle. So I just didn't want to start him. So it burnt me with him getting 30, 40 points on my bench in many weeks. But I do love him. And if you do have him, I'd plug him in this week. Let's see how he does against San Francisco. You don't want to have him on your bench for 30-plus points 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. But you really and I've been talking a lot with people, especially at my day job here, about I had this person on my bench, I had this person on my bench. For instance, my number 1, 2, and 3rd overall pick in one league got outscored by my opponent's kicker. But if you combine those 3, not individually, combined, they had less points than her kicker who I played. Eventually I lost by 3 points, but that's just something with the information you have before. Excuse me.
Shout out real quick to, you said her, to all the ladies playing fantasy football. Yes. Always good to see more of them coming in.
She's done great. This is her 2nd season. She said she's here to learn, and next year she's gonna beat the crap out of everybody.
Great, that's awesome. That's outstanding. That's what I like to hear. Keep going, though, brother.
Yes, the point is, with the information you have before the game, that's really where you make. If you go back, would you have made a change with the same information you had before the game? Probably not. I'm not going to start Devin Singletary in the first game over Devontae Adams, over Mike Evans, over Adam Thielen against the Falcons.
Right.
And then Kirk Cousins has 10 pass attempts.
10 pass attempts. Completes 8 of them, though.
Yeah.
80.
And a touchdown to Adam Thielen. I was super excited. Started off really good.
At least you got a touchdown. I had Diggs in one of my lineups, so you can just calm down over there, all right?
Yeah, Diggs was on my must-start list.
Whoop, a swing and a miss.
Yeah, that one was. I did have Austin Eckler as high risk, high reward, so he ended up being high reward at least. But
Yes. How do you
uh,
think he's going to do against Detroit this week? On the road,
oof,
David Johnson didn't do too well pass catching the ball. I mean, he
yeah,
did, okay, but it took an overtime.
I'm I'm gonna be careful with Austin Eckler.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
something to be careful about this week for sure. Don't I wouldn't expect 3 touchdowns again.
oh no, and
But
that's
Detroit's always prone to let up huge rushing games, regardless of who's running the ball.
but
Remember,
then David Johnson didn't. So and he's a much better running back.
right? Exactly, right. I was
But
just curious.
so John Ross standout performance for me. Do you have any standout performance you would like to mention?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There was obviously a plethora of them. Lamar Jackson did his thing. Marquise Brown did his thing. Those were two big ones. T.J. Hawkinson, obviously, I shouted out, did
Yeah.
great. Sammy was unbelievable with the Tyreek Hill injury. I don't see that being as big as it was without the Hill injury. A couple shout outs, though, is Dak Prescott. Really impressed.
Yes.
405 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. 41 fantasy points, was 1 point behind Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson stole all the media hype because it is Lamar Jackson. He was pretty good for a running back. Another guy I like to shout out, though, is division rival Deshaun Jackson came out balling with his old team, but his new team. 35 fantasy points, 8 receptions, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns. And if Carson Wentz stays healthy this year, Philadelphia is going to have a monster offensive 2019, and then the backbone of it might be Deshaun Jackson. Though Alshon Jeffrey might get the more PPR receptions throughout the end of the year, I think Deshaun Jackson has enough big plays to kind of separate himself as an elite wide receiver, even being 30, 31 years old.
I was mightily impressed by that speed, and I have a follow up on that later on, and as we hit the waiver wire a little bit after this. But we're gonna break with two questions real quick before we hit the waiver wire. We have Chauncey TV. Would you play, again, Breida over Robbie Anderson in your flex? I know we already covered Breida lightly, but he would like to know Breida over Robbie Anderson. I haven't fully done my score projections yet, but off the top of my head, or, well, let me put in real quick.
Say if this was PPR or not.
No.
Okay, I was just
So
curious.
that was Chauncey. Let us know if it's PPR or
I mean, it doesn't
standard.
make a big difference, but it kind of makes a difference. So it just, I mean,
Yeah, definitely. Um,
more information, the better, like, and I don't expect listeners in any way or people asking me on the side of the street or at work or anything like, I'm in a 40 points for, or you get 4 points for anything 40 plus,
yeah.
nothing like that. But to know that information, like if you're just sitting here listening and have the time, yeah, definitely throw all that kind of information because everything can adjust everything else. To real quick,
Half
regardless
point
of what
PPR.
it is. Wait, what? Half point?
Half point PPR, the best scoring system in the league, in the world.
Oh man, give me PPR, dude. I love PPR. I love predicting the receptions. Give me Matt Breida or Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson for a bounce back. Matt Breida for a bounce back. I would keep Robbie in at home against Cleveland. I think this game's going to be a little bit more high scoring than we expect, just because the Jets played the Bills defense, a very good defense,
Yeah,
week
they
one.
were great.
The Jets offense is bad. Cleveland has had a bad showing in week one, but now gets a Jets defense that does not have C.J. Mosley. I feel like Baker's going to be able to bounce back. I feel like Sam Darnold's going to bounce back. Darnold's going to want the revenge since Baker took this game from him last year, and the Jets were the first team to, award the Browns a win in X amount of months, years. So I feel like this game's going to be a little bit more high scoring than we think, which gives Robbie Anderson a great chance to come out with 125 yards and a touchdown, as opposed to Matt Breida in Cincinnati might be able to get 6 or 7 receptions for 40 yards and 10 to 11 rushes for 60 yards. I'm just going to take the ceiling of Robbie Anderson for me.
And I'm going against you with Matt Breida. I have him projected right now with not updated projections as a little safer with a little higher floor. So depending on how my team looks, I would go with Breida. I think he's going to be great. Chris Carson looked fantastic against that Cincinnati front line, and I think a running back is going to do really well against them. I will not argue with any point you made on Robbie Anderson, though.
I will
Any
say
point.
this too. I will say this. Like, if I'm sorry, what was the lady or gentleman that asked this question?
This was Chauncey TV.
So if you're Chauncey, I think is what I heard you say. If
Mm-hmm.
you're him, uh, you now and you're listening, and you're like, well, thanks. That helped me in no way, shape, or form. Literally, both of you just decided the opposite. You fuckers go home. But the way to take that is that does help, and this is something to think about. If you want to know, you might want to take the higher floor over the higher ceiling. You might want to try to like be your consistent way and keep your winning going, because if you are want to know, that means you have other players that have picked your team up if you were debating between Matt Breeder and Robbie Anderson last week, who both had pretty piss poor numbers.
Yeah.
However, if you're 0-1 and we're having a big thunderstorm over here, I don't know if you guys can hear that thunder. It's
Oh,
cracking the
yeah.
house.
Holy crap.
But if you are 0-1, you might want to take the ceiling because it shows that your team might not be that great right now. Not saying it wasn't a bad draft or anything. It's just week one showed that there's some holes or flaws in your team. So if you're 0-1, maybe you want to take Robbie Anderson in the higher ceiling, or if you're 1-0, maybe you want to take Breida with the higher floor. That's just something to think about instead of thinking, well, these guys just didn't help me at all. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. It's all about your situation, but that's fantasy football any week.
Yep.
You gotta evaluate. Also, like depends. I like to evaluate from my team standpoint. If I have a lot of high ceiling players, I want to grab a couple of floor players in there and
Right.
mix and match.
Yeah, pepper a couple floor guys in. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to have Robbie Anderson with Travis Benjamin on the same
Right.
team.
Right. And that's exactly right. So, I mean, take everything that we're saying here, Chauncey, and just kind of plug. We can never tell you what to do. The best we can do is kind of advise and give our best judgment. But with fantasy football, it always comes down to your gut. Whoever's listening, your gut. My gut for me, my team, your gut. Go with your gut. Get as much in research and information as you can. Settle down. Listen to the inner gut. No matter what, that is going to be the correct answer.
Did you watch my live stream on Sunday? Because you paraphrased pretty much my entire last point from from that.
I did not. I did not. But I'm glad we think the same way.
Because I was also like, oh, I will do this and this and this, and the other player, I kind of want to start the other guy, and like, then that's your choice. You
And
have to
go.
go with the guy
You,
you're comfortable with.
yeah.
We have another question from Dan, but we will hit that when we get to the weekly topic. We have to move on, so we'll save that question for a few more minutes, Dan, and then we'll touch that running back question. So, give us 1 second. So the waiver wire, my first waiver wire guy that I've been looking. You touched on Deshaun Jackson running amok in the secondary with tons of speed against the Redskins. Who's playing the Redskins in week 2? The Dallas Cowboys.
Mm.
And who will follow Amari Cooper? Well, that's Josh Gordon. That's fine. He's still gonna get his catches. That's just what he does as a Cowboy. But who has speed on the outside and will play that Deshaun Jackson role? But Michael Gallup. He is a must start for me in week 2. I'm starting him in leagues. I got him. I'm picking him up in PPR from the waiver wire, and I think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be fantastic over the course of the season, but Redskins were terrible against a speedy wide receiver in week 1. I don't think they're going to make those changes towards a much, much better offense that have Zeke, Amari Cooper, Witten, Randall Cobb. There will be space for Gallup to have 89 and a touch for 4 receptions. No, maybe not 4, 3, but around that number. So keep in mind that he also has the Dolphins in week 3. Another team that had no chance in stopping speedy receivers down the field. And Gallup and Dak looks fantastic together on the deep ball. I think he is a fantastic waiver pickup here in week 1, especially if you're missing some high upside players on your team. If you're a guy like me who go heavy floor early on, you have a couple of high ceiling players on your bench that you can just swap out without people really caring if you drop somebody like drawing a blank, but another high ceiling guy for Michael Gallup.
You need to have Michael Gallup on your team. If he's out there, there's not a lot of guys I'm going to be keeping over Michael Gallup, and I got him in a lot of leagues because I literally saw something. So there's a big thing, a big epidemic, or not epidemic. Excuse me, that's the wrong term. There's a big conspiracy in the NFL that held true from years like 2005 to 2015, and it was 30-year wide receivers were a must. They were a must, and it was so big there were websites dedicated to these 30-year wide receivers and who should break out and whatnot. That is no longer the case. Every single year, you need to be targeting players that are sitting as a starter at their second year in the NFL. Guys like Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams, Michael Gallup, James Washington, all these guys should have been targeted in your leagues, and all these guys are going to break out this year. And now, not all of them started out great, but they are going to be phenomenal. And this does not exclude Michael Gallup, as I mentioned. Gallup is on a team with a quarterback that is desperately trying to show the entire world, not just his franchise and his owner, but the entire world, because this is the world's team, that he is a $40 million, $50 million quarterback. Now, I don't know if it's true. He showed he was phenomenal in week 1, but it was against the Giants defense that is pretty bad. And especially in week 1, it's going to be bad. It will be better the next time they play each other. We'll see. And we'll see what Dak does. I don't want to base Dak off of 3 straight weeks against piss-poor defenses and crown him an amazing quarterback when they're 3-0. You need to wait until week 6 or 7 for that to hold true. However, in these first early weeks, especially if you're playing in DFS, season long, it doesn't matter. You're starting Michael Gallup because Gallup, along with Amari Cooper, along with Jason Witten, along with Zeke, will all get their fair share because it just seems like the Cowboys are always okay with spreading that ball around, unless it's Des Bryant. He doesn't want it spread around anywhere. I fully think that Michael Gallup needs to be owned, and I absolutely love Michael Gallup.
Thank you. I'm so happy you say that because it's been reported pretty much the entire offseason in Dallas just how good he is. And I didn't want to believe it too much as a homer. I'm like, yeah, you say that every year. Like, oh, this year Terrence Williams is going to break out. No,
yeah.
he was never. Tavon Austin is getting 80 touches. No. Michael Gallup is actually, he did good things as a Cowboy last year. It was just, they did not have a good rapport with each other, and Dak actually missed a lot of deep throws to him, and you can see the timing was a little bit off. You've seen in the preseason Dak hitting him with these deep shots, and I think he really improved that part of his game, but also from Gallup's standpoint that he's prepared to make adjustments in the air and adjust to the ball where it's being placed, and that's a huge factor. Des was actually fantastic at that, making adjustments on pretty terrible throws sometimes, but he would make the play anyway. And I think Gallup is not developing into Des Bryant, but he is developing into a legit deep threat.
So just a couple numbers to throw at you too for anyone listening saying where the hell are the statistics, because words don't mean anything. I don't want your gut. I want some numbers. Michael Gallup I just lost it. I'm sorry. Third most yards after catch, 75 yards after catch. That's 10.7 yards per target after catch, not just per catch, per target. He finished second, obviously, with receiving yards, but he finished 5th overall yards per pass route. They just think these like great in-depth numbers. 6th overall yards per target, 22.6. 5.45 yards per pass route. And number 5, yards per pass route. That's just routes ran. Like, this guy is going to be just fine. Make sure you're getting him.
And add that he didn't even score a touchdown. So it's not like he had a game where you expect some negative regression in the next one. It's actually more likely that he'll catch a touchdown against the Redskins since he didn't catch one in this game.
The Redskins are going to do what they can to double Amari because Amari showed that he can catch 2 touchdowns and beat you whenever, wherever, because Amari's pretty damn good. That's going to mean, and this is what falls in when you're playing fantasy football, you never want to fall into starting off of last week. You always want to start off of what's to come. And what happens a lot of times is defensive coordinators will see Amari Cooper get 2 touchdowns the last week, and they'll do everything they can to make sure Amari Cooper can't catch more than 2 balls this week. What that means is that Dak's going to stop looking at Amari or quickly go to the next read, which is going to be Gallup. And so Gallup's going to see more targets this week than Amari will. And that's going to just produce maybe not more yards, but a touchdown, more receptions, and probably more fantasy numbers.
Definitely. And then we talked about the matchups coming out against the Redskins, and after that you have the Dolphins, and those are some terrific matchups. So even if you don't get any value from Gallup after week 3, it's about being better than your opponent week in and week out. It's not about being better having Michael Gallup on your team every week. You just need to have him in the best situation possible for week 2 and 3 and make sure you win those games. We have another question regarding Gallup here from Dan, which would be the last one before we hit Chauncey's and Dan's running back questions. And we have another question as well from Chauncey regarding wide receivers.
Questions are flowing in. Chauncey, I
can't even keep up. But Dan, would you trade Landry for Gallup? I would. I actually just benched Landry for Gallup in my Dynasty League. Half-point PPR Dynasty, I'm starting 3 wide receivers this week. And one of them is Michael Gallup over Landry. I would make that trade right now.
And you're such a homer. Calm down. Don't listen. He's way too much of a homer. That's like asking me, would you trade someone ridiculous for TJ Hockenson? Like, just calm down. Juice is going to be just fine. It took a minute for Cleveland to get things it's going to take a week, but this week they're going to be fine. Cleveland's offense will not be the Cleveland team will not win as many games as everyone thought, but the Cleveland offense will score a fine enough points. Jarvis will get his fair share. Gallup is like huge risk.
I want that upside. I want that upside for these weeks against these terrible defenses.
I know. So you're now trading Landry for Gallup, who then you're going to try to trade in week 4.
Yeah.
And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, and if you love trade, I guess, but I'm not buying in to this in any way. I'll hold on to Juice for right now. I'm not. That's just. I feel like that's immediate week 1. What's the word I'm looking for? Like just overreaction.
No, definitely. And then Dan says he lives in Cleveland as well. So I'm gonna, by that information, I'll have to change my pick to keep Landry. You're not on screen, Nick. You're fine.
I'm
you got a dog walking behind him.
Dogs are walking behind me, and I'm like,
But with the knowledge of Dan living in Cleveland, you kind of have to stick with Landry.
Yes.
Definitely. And then Sean C. wants to know what's Nick's and my thoughts on the 49ers wide receiver group and the Chargers wide receiver group after Williams' knee injury. My thoughts on the 49ers is I've been a huge Dante Pettis fan for a while now. I was mildly disappointed with his production, but he did have some issues going into the game. So I'm stashing him for the breakout I've been predicting. I'm sitting quite calmly in that boat. The Chargers wide receiver group, I have actually not put that much thought into it with Williams out now. So I'll let you talk about that if you have a couple of thoughts on the Chargers.
How long is Williams out for? Correct. Refresh my memory too. Do we know that? Do we have
I actually don't know.
See, I don't have an indication on how long Williams is out. I just know. I knew that the injury had occurred. I didn't know exactly what the fallout was. But if we're going to try to talk about the depth of the Chargers receivers, and is that like we're talking about Mike Williams, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm also bringing in the fact too that Hunter Henry's injured.
Yeah.
And so Keenan Allen. Get Keenan Allen. Try to trade for Keenan Allen as much as you can, it seems like, because there is no one. Like, I am not trusting Travis Benjamin in any way, shape, or form. And if you want to get to the receivers behind Benjamin, you're talking Jeremy Davis, Dontrell Inman. Like, I'm nervous. I don't know. Maybe Bert Green, I guess. Like, no one. Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler's going to catch 50 balls because no one else on that team can catch a ball.
I think that's the best advice we can give is to try to trade for Keenan Allen. We were having a discussion the other day before the game started actually about the Bengals and can't they trade AJ Green to try to get some value if they're gonna be terrible. Now they look pretty decent, so they might not do that, but wouldn't it have been interesting to just trade AJ Green to the Chargers for something, and then when he comes back you have Keenan Allen and AJ Green on each side. I know it's not happening, but
that would have been very fun. That would have been a great team to watch. Keenan Allen and AJ Green. It's very similar to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. It's like, wow, that's just going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And in Cleveland, it's going to be fun. I know week 1 wasn't fun, but it's going to be fun.
Eventually. No, that ghost is never leaving that town. I know we're running a little bit low on time, so let's... and Chauncey has Keenan Allen already, so he's in a great situation.
You're in a great spot, yeah, for sure.
So we're going to hit our weekly topic. So we only have 13 minutes left on this first episode of the CSD and Faber Experience. We were planning to hit running backs and talk about running backs just in general, but we have a question to start it off with. My running backs are Devontae Freeman, Melvin Gordon, LaShawn McCoy, Singletary, Justice Hill, and Breida. That's not a question, though. That was just a statement.
So he's just boasting about Melvin?
No, it was in relation to the Breida or Robbie Anderson in flex. I believe. So he's stashing Melvin Gordon. So I believe that means, how long are you for Melvin Gordon? Let's start with Melvin Gordon. I'm stashing him, of course. Like you cannot not stash him if you have him on your team. I didn't draft him in any league. I drafted Austin Eckler instead in 2.
Yeah, and Justin Jackson. I got both of them. I hadn't wanted nothing to do with Melvin Gordon. Gordon might not be back. Like, is it shocking? Like, so what? If he plays,
he said he was going to be back between week 6 and 8. But do they want him back?
Once, fool me once. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I won't let that happen. Le'Veon Bell promised me he'd be back after the bye week. All right, Le'Veon, cool. I got you, bro. Yeah. Let's wait until after. He never came. No. Melvin Gordon's gonna do the same thing, but the fact is it different? Did Le'Veon Bell didn't have to show up to be a free agent? Does Melvin Gordon have to play 8 games to be a free agent?
He does.
So Melvin Gordon probably
he's on the 5th-year option.
I wonder if they just trade him. I really
wanted them to trade him so badly, and now it looks...
No team's going to pay what they want. No team's going to give a first for Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, but it wouldn't... Before the LaShawn McCoy trade went down, they dropped him, and then he went to Kansas City. That would have been the ideal situation.
If Melvin Gordon went to Kansas City...
They never would have done it inside the division, but I can't really see any other situation or team that would trade for him.
If you're the Chargers, do you accept a first round for Melvin Gordon from the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think you have to, because there's either you're hamstringing your division rival by having them give up a first round pick for a running back that you're not using, but you're also giving them Melvin Gordon, which is kind of
Oh, I know. That's the ultimate debate. That's why we're not general managers. That's why we just own a fantasy team. I don't know. Melvin Gordon, you got to stash him for sure. We'll see.
But where can he be traded?
About Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon who? Melvin Gordon who? Austin Eckler did pretty damn good.
Oh, he did. Justin Jackson, too, to be fair.
Justin Jackson, too. I'm still stashing him for sure.
Two-headed monster right there.
Yeah, I mean, your Eckler is a little smaller, man. If he catches an injury, Justin Jackson gonna step right in. Yeah, they're gonna have to run the ball. They don't have any wide receivers or tight ends or anyone to throw to.
Speaking of small running backs, Philip Lindsay started off with a bunch of touches in that game and then just had nothing moving forward.
Real.
I was mightily surprised. I'm a huge Lindsay fan. He ended up as RB30 in week 1. With 11 rush attempts and 6 targets for 4 receptions, and only 6.6 points in standard, but then 10.6 in PPR. I was so surprised they didn't use him more, especially in the passing game in that game. and I think we saw some glimpses of Cortland Sutton being good, but I would have thought the offense would have been more catered to Philip Lindsay. How do you feel about him moving forward?
Well, they got the Bears this week, so I don't like him this week.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to start him. You're definitely
Mm-mm.
going to sit him. Royce Freeman, they spent a higher pick on. He bursted out in that one preseason run that everyone caught an eye at. I'm not. Ugh, I love Philip Lindsay. I love Philip Lindsay, but I'm not sold on him. I don't think the Broncos are ever going to be in a game script where they're going to be running the ball heavily because they're winning. Which means, like, sure, Philip can be that pass catcher, but he's not really. So I'm afraid it's going to be a full-on 50-50 show, thus making the start option for him a headache. And you catch him on a week where Royce does better, and you got the Bears, then you got the Packers at Lambeau the next week. Again, they're just going to be passing that game. I don't know about Philip Lindsay. Unfortunately, I guess, to be all honest, not to scare anyone, but I have little faith in him this year.
Okay. I think his superior ferocity and running ability and where he runs the football with my trend analysis, I believe he eventually will stake out his claim as the best runner on that team. I just think he has a tough start. I expected more from him week one. I was mildly disappointed. He just needed, a couple of more to get me that win that I was talking about earlier with that kicker. But I think after week two, it's still Devonta Adams, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen scored less than my opponent's kicker combined. I'm still upset. I'm gonna be upset about this all season.
Harrison Butker, what kicker was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, and then when Fairbairn was about to kick the first field goal, I'm like, okay, we're on the board. We're about to get. They freaking just flags, and 4 more downs. I'm like, yeah, of course, and 1 point for a PAT. I'm still mad about this. But no, but keeping on with running backs, Devin Singletary looked fantastic on the few touches he had.
Yeah.
I don't think you can you bench him?
What?
In week 2?
Start him? He had 4 carries last week. Can you start him?
Yeah, but then it's against the Giants.
It's against the Giants. But are they going to give Frank Gore 15 times? Is Frank Gore healthy? Did he get injured last week? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I bet he's playing, but I'm pretty sure he got injured a little bit last week.
It says that Frank Gore is still.
I don't know.
He's still listed as starting running back 2 hours ago.
So if Frank Gore is starting, can you start Devin Singletary? Okay. Do you start Devin Singletary, Philip Lindsay?
Oh, Singletary week 2. Singletary week 2. Yeah.
Right? Okay. Do you start Carlos Hyde or Devin Singletary?
Ooh, who do Carlos Hyde have?
Carlos Hyde, the Jags.
No, I'll start Singletary. I'll start Singletary in that one too.
Perfect. Now, do you start Singletary or Duke Johnson? I'm gonna run down a few more of these.
Yeah, still Singletary.
Over Jacksonville. Okay, perfect. So now the question is, like, do you start Sony Michel against the Dolphins or Devin Singletary?
Michel. I can't. I can't.
James White or Devin Singletary?
James White as well.
Malcolm Brown, Devin Singletary.
Singletary. We had a question.
I forgot about that. Let's do a show. I'm just gonna list off names and we're just gonna like rapid fire who we'd start in front of them. This was fun.
We had a question about Gurley and Malcolm Brown from Dan that I forgot. So let's touch that one because you mentioned Malcolm Brown. I have Gurley and Malcolm Brown. Would it be smart to start both of them just to lock up both those Rams RB or lock up those Rams RB points? What do you think about that?
So Gurley and Malcolm Brown. That Gurley is a guaranteed start. Like I hope that's not even obviously that's not part of the question, but I hope that's not anything in your head. Malcolm Brown, I need to know who else we're starting Malcolm Brown over. Do I think it's smart to start both? No. I was saying just yesterday in my other podcast that I am not sold on Malcolm Brown at all this year. I do not think that Malcolm Brown's 10 carries are going to produce any type of fantasy numbers outside of him being a touchdown vulture, and that becomes a headache. It's not. He's not a Jerome Bettis or a give me another touchdown vulture running back's name. I can't think of it right.
Blunt.
The Garrett Blunt. He's just not a vulture when it comes to the running back touchdown. I think Gurley will get his share. It just kind of worked out that way last week. So I don't think I'm expecting the same numbers that we got from Malcolm Brown via in the touchdown department. The rushes, the 11 rushes for 58 yards could be very similar. Again, I just see Gurley getting in the end zone this week. You definitely want to keep them both. You never know what's going to happen. But Gurley looked good. Gurley looked fine. They're just trying, I feel, to preserve him, which is going to not only demote his fantasy ranking, but it's going to increase Malcolm Brown's, but still keep his upside at a real low running back 3 almost every week. I can't ever buy into starting Malcolm Brown right now. However, if we come out and we see them at home against the Saints and Malcolm Brown gets 12 carries for 90 yards instead of this 50, 60, then we'll come back to this topic. For now, I'm not starting both of them. But if you're debating on starting Rex Burkhead or Malcolm Brown, actually, I'd probably start Rex Burkhead in there. To be all honest.
Against the Dolphins.
Well, and Rex was, man, he was the guy they leaned on. Not leaned on because they weren't losing, but they went heavy with Rex in week 1, way more heavy than I thought they would. Yeah, so maybe if you're playing,
hates your fantasy team.
Well, I'm saying if you're playing in a deep 16-team, 10 bench player league, you definitely might want to have Rex on your team.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's, again, like we touched earlier on, it depends on your situation so many times.
And isn't it the Patriots' way to go, to come right back to that real quick to cut you off? Isn't it Sony Michel and James White, and then it's Rex Burkhead who's going to be the freaking guy this year? It's the most Patriots thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be so frustrating.
Yep.
What Dion Lewis, when they had him and that group, the group before, Sony and James White, and it was just you I'm just annoyed, and it's not fun to play fantasy if you're starting.
You're taking the fun out of the game, Bill Belichick.
Yeah, let somebody else win, and then let our fantasy players score points.
For real, though. Well, there's going to be a plethora of wide receivers scoring points in New England. All of a sudden, Tom Brady seems to be one of the top quarterbacks that should have been drafted.
Yeah.
After going undrafted in most every league.
Yeah, I didn't touch him. I had him pretty lowly ranked.
Heck no, I didn't want anything to do with Tom Brady all season. Sony Michel, I banged the table for him. Well, that's what I get, man. I did the same thing with Mike Gillislee, and I was like, I'm not afraid. I'm going back to the well. After this, it's never happening again.
Oh, no, I try to stay away from Sony, too. People have been asking me questions about Sony Michel all offseason. How should I know? I'm like, no, Bill Belichick hates your fantasy team.
I was the complete opposite guy. They'd talk to you, and then they turn around and see me at the store across the street and be like, "What do you think about Sony Michel?" I'm like, "Oh my God, he needs to be a 3rd-round draft pick. You need to be getting him. Get Sony."
This is what is that ESPN show called? Stephen A. and the other dude.
Oh my God, dude!
It's all about disagreeing with each other. So instead of agreeing, we should just, if I say something, you just have to hate that player.
No matter what.
Yeah, I'm I think Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. No, he sucks. He's terrible.
He's a system quarterback.
Yeah.
If we did do that game and you brought up Matt Stafford and said he was great and I had to defend how he wasn't great,
Ooh.
I might cry. You would see you'd see a grown man crying. Trying to tell you that Stafford isn't good.
Megatron is the greatest wide receiver of all time, and you have to.
Yeah, again, I don't know if I could do that. Also, I don't even think ESPN even exists anymore. Nobody watches ESPN, in my opinion. I mean, at least I say that because everyone probably still does. I can't stand ESPN. I'm all about the NFL Network these days.
Definitely. And then we used to have them on at the office all the time, and switched to HGTV instead.
Yep. Nope, I get that. You're right. When it's forced in front of you, it is at least sports. I would rather have First Take on than the local news.
Oh yeah, that's what it's called. First Take with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. from Dan.
Max.
Thank you, Sean C, for hitting that like button. Dan has
Hey,
one start Malcolm Brown over Breida or Landry. He also has DK Metcalf, Dion Lewis, Chris Thompson, Keke Kuti, and David Montgomery. Out of that group, I feel, as I said, I haven't done my projections, and I usually hold off with big time decisions like that until tomorrow, where all the predictions are done. Do you want to chime in before
you're gonna
we?
have to you're gonna have to move that up a week. If we're doing
Yeah,
this on Wednesdays, we're gonna have too many people asking who to start. You're gonna have to move that up. But move
I'm
it up.
definitely moving the projections up. I'm just a little bit behind this week, but next week I'll definitely have all the projections done by 9 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday for the CSD and Faber Experience episode
Yes.
2.
Set
You
it up on your calendar right now because it's gonna be hot. It's gonna be fiery. There was a plethora of players you just said.
Yes,
So
Malcolm Brown.
reread them.
We start okay. We're gonna do it like this. It's Malcolm Brown or Breida.
Okay, I like what you're doing here. I'm gonna go Breida.
Malcolm Brown or Landry. No, let's switch it then. Breida or Landry.
Breida and Landry.
Landry or DK.
That's it. That was the tough one. The other
Mm-hmm.
guys I don't even care about.
Dion
No,
Lewis, Chris Thompson, Keke, and David Montgomery. I think you can skip all of them as of
actually,
now.
Chris Thompson might be someone. Who does Washington play? Let me grab the Washington.
The America's team.
Oh, America's team. Yeah, you probably don't want to. Sorry,
Yeah.
move. My dog's about to cry real quick. Landry or DK? What a great question. Just give me like 5 seconds. Stall. Start singing. Start
Yeah,
singing.
no, I'll start with our start with some plugs before we get done. While
Thank
Nick is thinking here to answer the last question of the first episode of the CSD and Faber Experience, I would just like to plug some of our content coming up. Tomorrow is the score projection and risk analysis on csdfantasy.com. Be sure to check that out. For my full waiver wire article, go to csdfantasy.com right now. It's right there in the front. You can't miss it. It has a lot of information about players that I don't want you to pick up, sort of. And on Friday and Saturday, it will be video content with Michael Gallup and John Ross. So don't forget to check that out here on the YouTube channel. And on Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, it will be the live stream as usual. Nick.
That's going to be great. The Gallup and Ross show. I can't wait for that one. Um, yeah, Landry or DK is where we settled at. It was a kind of a playoff to get there, and I'm gonna stick with Juice. I'm just saying, don't bail out on Juice right now. Just don't bail out on him. It gives you not if anything, it gives you the slightest amount of hope come Monday night. You have Landry playing Monday night. DK Metcalf looked great. I keep him on your team. Playing the Steelers, I think Steelers are going to bounce back hard. I think sure they had some injuries come about, but I think this game's going to be lower scoring, where the Browns and Jets are going to be higher scoring. So overall, just because I think the volume's going to be there for Juice and his, I don't know, 10, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 75 yards, and a touchdown will surpass DK Metcalf's, four
440.
4 targets, 3 receptions, 32 yards, and nothing, because we're not going to see guys don't have just amazing. I mean, he didn't have an amazing week, but it's a roller coaster in fantasy. You got to make sure you're predicting, not just basing off of last week.
Definitely, and Dan agrees with that as well. So he'll be starting Juice as the Cleveland Browns fan. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. This has been fantastic. CSD and Faber Experience episode 1. Be sure to see us again next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, right here on YouTube. And have a good rest of your week.
Yeah, buddy.
See y'all later.